Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to the best in paranormal talk radio and live video stream. This is Darkness Radio presents Holzer's Ghosts. Tonight we're going to be discussing Season 1, Episode 1, Phantoms of the Fire, The Haunting in Rye, New York. We'll be getting into that in just a few moments. So what's going on with Holzer Files? Thanks for asking. Let me fill you in a little bit. We are on mid-season break for Season 2. Our first 5-6 episodes aired until December. Then we're taking a break. We'll be coming back a little bit later on, and we will have 7 more brand new fantastic episodes to share with all of you. So just keep tuning in. And what we're going to do in the interim to keep this fun and entertaining is we're going to go back in time to Season 1 of the Holzer Files. So I encourage you to watch along with us as we do this. Tonight, we're going to talk about Episode 1. Next week, we will be back and we'll be talking Episode 2, which was, they think they buried me alive, which takes place at the Morris Jumel Mansion. And I have 2 special guests joining me, Vinny and Chris from the Morris Jumel Mansion. They were featured in that episode. Both know the history and the haunting very well and have been there for multiple sightings and experiences. I'm also working on another special guest that I hope will be able to join me for that program. So thank you all for being here this evening. And remember now, Discovery Plus is the new streaming service where you will be able to find all of the great Discovery Channel programs under one umbrella, and you'll be able to watch them ad-free. So you can go back and watch every episode of Ghost Adventures. I've been on about 8 or 9 episodes of Ghost Adventures, so go back and check it out. You'll be able to check out episodes of the Holzer Files Season 1 and all of your other favorite paranormal content, travel channel shows, everything under the Discovery Channel network blanket will be there as a part of that program. Plus, they have exclusive programming, including a new series called Fright Club. And I know Cindy Kaza and I will be popping in on a couple episodes of Fright Club with Jack Osborne and the Ghost Brothers. And that'll be part of Discovery Plus, D Plus, and more. So you can get information, and it's cheap, folks. A lot of us are cutting cable ties now anyway, and you're looking for a way to keep up with your favorite Discovery Channel shows. This is the way to do it. For one price, you're going to get all this programming. It's a great opportunity and a good way to see all of your favorite shows ad-free. Tonight, like I said, I wanted to go back in time to revisit one of our very first episode that aired. Now, this was not the first episode we filmed. The first episode we filmed was at the Whaley House, and I believe that's the 3rd episode that actually aired. So we'll be flip-flopping a little bit, but it's fun to revisit these episodes and watch in the series to see how they play. This was us getting to know one another, and it was really cool. Tonight, I did invite Shane Pittman, of course, because this was our very first episode. I invited Shane to be a part of tonight's program. For those of you that have been following on Darkness Radio or on social media, Shane Pittman's father has entered the end stages of life here, and he has been dealing with some recurring issues. So Shane is staying close to home with family, and we wish him the very best. Our thoughts and prayers go out to him, and we want to thank all of the great audience members that have been sending prayers and good wishes, well wishes, and everything. It means a lot to Shane. He wanted me to make sure to mention that to you. So thank you very much. But joining me tonight, of course, the prettiest part of the show that you see during the investigations, Cindy Kaza. Hi, Cindy.
Hello, Dave. I got to get in the center here.
Yeah, that's good. Now my logo for Darkness Radio is up on the video, and I'm not blocking it. Cindy, this is cool. We're getting a chance to go back and revisit these episodes. And I went back tonight with my wife and kids, and we sat down to watch this episode. And I was taking copious notes because, again, it's been over a year since we filmed these.
I know. It's crazy.
And this helped me. I think this was our 3rd episode we filmed, if I remember correctly.
I think that's right, because the first one, Whaley House, the second one, what was the second one?
That was Metuchen. Yeah. And then
that seems right, yeah.
This episode, which was 3rd, how they decide what order they're going to air is beyond us. But, a lot of it is making sure that they've got all the editing processes in place. They've got all the sign-offs and all the contracts crossed and dotted and everything, and make sure that they're ready to roll. Sometimes it's just you want to come out swinging, and this was a really cool episode. And in our first couple episodes, I mean, we were still just trying to get the feel for one another. We knew each other, but we never really worked in these kind of circumstances. So
yeah. And, you know, this is one of my favorite episodes, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one where, you know, it's a favorite of mine because this is one where we get to see Shane kind of come to life. Because in the first 2 episodes, he was all business, man. And he was setting up equipment and he was trying so hard to, you know, just try to be the stoic figure. And in this episode, there was so much weirdness going on that it finally cracked the veneer. And we were all unnerved. And there are some cool points that did not make it in tonight's episode on air that we'll talk about. But this episode was interesting because this is a case that Hans Holzer visited 3 times in 1963 and a few different times to try to help this family. And basically what had happened, to catch our audience up, this house was very haunted. The family called in Hans Holzer because they were having strange phenomena take place. They would lock their door, and their door had 3 separate locks on them, including a swinging chain lock. And they would turn around, go in another room, come back. The locks would all be switched and the chain would be swinging on the door. They would hear things, footsteps, voices. And one of the stories that Tony, the son, told us was, oh, hold on, I left that window open because it's boiling in here, so please leave that open. Tony was telling us that during parties, they would have strange things happen. So he started to actually address the spirit. And this is when he was a kid. So like if they addressed the spirit to come with them and be a part of the party, everything would calm down. But there were times when water would literally rain down from the ceiling. And, you know, our first inclination was to ask, well, were there leaking pipes? No leaking pipes. And it was leaking in an area that was on the first floor. There was a floor and a half above that. And they would get rained on, for lack of a better term. Have you ever heard of something like that prior to our investigation?
I haven't. And the whole investigation was wild, right? Like, you know, I don't know anything going into the investigation. So for people that have watched the episode, when I'm doing the psychometry and touching the painting, right? Like, I think I'm picking up on one location. I have no idea what is happening. So I just feel like this is one of those episodes where we were able to uncover not only a really sad, tragic story, but we were really able to put pieces of this puzzle together that nobody had been able to put together before.
Right. Thankfully, here we are in the 21st century, able to kind of re-examine these case files in a new way and contact people that have cut through the crap. People that weren't trying to fool or influence Hans Holzer in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, that's what might have happened in the past. Not necessarily in this case, because the Berendt family was very concerned. But you brought up the painting, which was an interesting fact. Now, I want to mention the water. The water apportation I've talked to is considered poltergeist activity. It's also considered activity that takes place in some demonic hauntings. And, you know, this wasn't something, although we kind of bumped into some darker spirits, this was kind of our first introduction to something that was otherworldly, not just ghosts who walk the earth, but something else influencing. And I want to get into that with you a little bit later to discuss that. But the family, the Barron's family, they had a portrait of Lottie Peck. And for people that Lottie Peck was a young girl who lived in the house, and she was referred to as having mental disabilities. And they would kind of keep her locked and cordoned off in the attic. That was her room, and she would spend most of her time up there. And it was very heartbreaking to hear these stories. And what we're considering mental disabilities is somebody you think might be severely handicapped in a source. But what might have been back then is something that was just a family embarrassment. Something that was maybe an unplanned pregnancy. So you blame it on mental deficiency, maybe other things like that. So we don't have a firm understanding of exactly how the prognosis or diagnosis was made for Lottie Peck. But the tragic aspect of it was that at one point, she tried to burn her way out. She had a candle in her room and she lit it, and she
Mm-hmm.
tried to burn the handle of the door, and it engulfed the room and took Lottie Peck's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought of why they probably chose this episode first, because this episode starts off with the creepiest piece of Ethel Meyer's audio. As a matter of fact,
my gosh.
it appears on every episode. It's that, my body, where's my body?
So remember, just so everybody knows, Dave and I, we watched the premiere together because we were working on the Haunted Salem Live. And when I heard that audio, because we hadn't heard that before, right? I got goosebumps all over my arms. It was terrifying. Like, I was terrified, legitimately.
Because I go in with Alexandra and Gabe. He plays these audio bits. I get to hear this in our headquarters.
Oh, that's right. You do. Yeah. I hadn't heard it before. Yeah.
Right. It was unnerving. So I remember that. Yeah. You and I, we filmed Salem Live, and then we scooted up to the room to watch it and to try to get away from the crowd. And we watch it just locked in on a little laptop was the only thing we could connect to the internet to watch. And we watch this. And with that first, my body, my body.
It's so scary.
It is. It was so weird and interesting, but I think that might be why, so that way you get some semblance of where that sound comes from.
Right.
And for those of you that are interested, you can go on YouTube and look up Ethel Meyer. You'll hear her. She speaks very cleanly and delicately, and that's why hearing these guttural voices come out of her are really, really freaky and unnerving.
And for those of you, and I just want to touch a little bit on I'm looking at some of the questions too. Oh, thanks for liking my haircut. It was a somebody said I like her haircut. I'll talk about that later. But for those of you listening that don't quite understand what trance mediumship is, first of all, it's a very rare gift. So there aren't many mediums that are truly trance mediums like Ethel and Sybil. And I always say it's not really my thing. It's a little bit too terrifying. I might be too much of a control freak to like surrender and let something get in there like that, but it's so crazy when you hear a trance medium, a true trance medium. They can speak like a man. They could speak foreign languages. It's phenomenal. And it's, as much as I'm fascinated by it and I respect it so much, it still scares me to be sitting. And I've sat in front of trance mediums working it, and I'm still freaked out by it, because it's just when you hear somebody's voice change like that and they suddenly become somebody else and you have no idea what they're about to say, it's unnerving, right?
Right. Yeah. My first connection with that was I was at the Queen Mary, which you and I get to visit in season 2 with Shane.
Right.
Investigate. And it was one of the first times I'd been to the Queen Mary, and I was there with my friend Chris Fleming, the medium. And Chris is not necessarily a trance medium, but spirits sometimes force their way through him. And he's talked about not properly shielding himself at points. And that was the first time I saw a trance mediumship happen, and it was forceful and it was terrifying as to see happen. He was like, Dave, I don't feel right. And he's like grabbing the wall. And he wasn't trying to entertain a crowd. It was a couple of us who were waiting for the next crew to come in. And then he just started with this guttural voices of this, what we believe was, I believe it was one of the naval people that had been injured during one of the accidents on board. And it was just terrifying to hear this voice coming out of Chris and watching him physically trying to fight this. But you could see just the distortion of his face. And it was as if something really was pushing through him and transforming every part of him. That was a holy shit minute. But, that's why Hans was very particular with the mediums that he worked with. He wanted to know that they were good and in control. And he was an excellent, what do they call that when you've got somebody who's helping you? Is that a mediator?
Well, it's I would say more of like a guide and somebody to kind of protect, because some mediums go so deep into trance and they have a hard time getting themselves out. And that can be scary, right? They can go so deep in. So it's kind of advised, if you're going to go that deep into trance, that you have somebody with you that can not only take notes and record what's happening, but also be there in case something bad starts happening and you need them to pull you out.
Yeah. And that's what Hans was there for. And Hans, to his credit, was very calm. He was a very calming influence, and his voice was always very calm. As she's getting weirder and wilder, he would try to rein her back in and keep control of the situation. But that is some of the creepiest audio I think we got across the board on the series so far. But we start off pretty strong, and this was the first time filming with you that you employed psychometry. And for the audience that might not be familiar, let's just catch them up again. What exactly is psychometry?
Yeah, so psychometry. So first of all, let me just preface my answer by saying that everything is energy. Everything is energy. And everything has a memory attached to it. So your ring has a memory attached to it. All of those things behind you on that shelf have memories attached to them. Everything holds a memory. So psychometry is when you hold an object and you, I guess, read the memories attached to the object. Mm-hmm. So you never really know what's going to happen. Well, that was a painting of Lottie Peck in this episode, right? But just tapping into the painting of her allowed me to tap into the story about her, and also into, what was going on in the other house and all these things, right? So it's not necessarily, right, if I hold somebody's ring, I might pick up on that person's life, right? But if the ring was handed down to them from somebody else in the family, I might pick up on somebody else's life. You never really know what's going to happen. You never know, but everything has a memory. Yeah.
Well, and that's an interesting aspect that we didn't get to show in the episode. When you first started to connect, I mean, I knew her history. I knew the story, and you were picking up on ancillary things. And as we're going through this, I'm trying to piece together the things that you were picking up, and they pare it down to just a few minutes. You did that psychometry for about an hour, and you were knocking out some really interesting facts, but you were like scattered. You were very, it was almost like you were irritated by how much was coming at you. And you started to realize that, okay, so first of all, this isn't an actual photograph. This is a painting of Lottie Peck done by another person who's poured their energy into it. Mm-hmm. It's been hanging in this house for 54 years. So the owner's, energy is a part of this. Lottie is obviously a part of it because of the intent behind the painting. And it was great because I remember at one point when you were going through it, and our director was like, is she getting this? Is she hitting it? I said, I think she's getting close. I think she's sifting through that myriad of nonsense of everything else and getting to it. And as I'm waiting on that, when we go back into the filming, you grabbed it and you're looking, you go, it's like, it's so chaotic. I can't tell if it's because I'm being bombarded or this person's crazy. And I go, yeah, stick with that. Go with that. Mm-hmm. That was this label that had been associated with Lottie Peck. She was nuts. She was crazy. She was, mentally deficient. And as soon as you got that clue, you locked in. And then, she's in this little room and I see a fire. And it was eerie how once you got that kind of key into her story, it just develops for you. Mm-hmm. How, and I know we briefly touched on this in the past, how do you sift through all those layers? Plus you've got 2 camera guys, a sound guy, our director, myself, we're all around you. So you've got to kind of separate all of our junk and everything from the house and the painting to get, how chaotic is that in your brain?
Yeah, sometimes it can be very chaotic. But I always, before I walk into a case, I just set the intention, or I say a little prayer, like, please let me tap into what I need to tap into for this case, because all of these homes that we're going into, most of them are very old, right? So there's so much history. And, what people also know, our show's 47 minutes, we film for 5 days. Right. So, I mean, a lot of stuff comes through, right? But I just set the intention that I'm going to pick up on, hopefully I'll pick up on what we need, but it is confusing. It can be super frustrating, to be getting information. And then you guys don't know the information sometimes until you do the interviews 2 days later. So then I'm saying things and you're like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, this is so annoying. Right. So I'm just like, and so over time, by season 2, it's like, I just surrendered to the whole way, the whole process. And I just say what I'm getting. I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just going to rapid fire everything that comes to me.
I had to laugh because I got emails from people. I've been teasing it out on our radio show to go back and watch this episode. And people were watching it and sending in little comments to me. And they're like, Dave, I'm really unnerved because your eyebrows don't move in this episode. And, I'm
Botox.
usually surprised. So a lot of it is you're talking and I'm just going, but even my eyebrow moved there. There was like no movement, no play. And I remember I was trying so hard. I didn't want to feed you or maybe mislead you and then you think, oh, I'm on the right track. So I was trying to be as stoic as I could to not show any emotion. And, that I know was troublesome too, because you're looking for some kind of feedback if we're on the right path. And that had to be.
Yeah. And like my feedback. And so feedback is they're not telling me the answers. It's just more like, imagine going into a house that's 400 years old. Like, can you just give me a wink if I'm in the right timeline? So I don't, am I in 1865 or am I in 1978? It's like, because it's so much is hitting me so quickly. It's so challenging. It can be, but I trust like the spirit world. I just surrendered to it and here we are.
Well, the family, the Berendt family, took it upon themselves to have this portrait, which is gorgeous, this portrait of Lottie Peck made. And they hang it in the house in her honor. And they talk to her like a family member. They begin treating her like she's the daughter she never had. And Tony treats her like a sibling or a friend. And all the negative activity, everything just stops. And now, Hans had been there 2 or 3 occasions trying to help spirits move on, and there was multiple things going on. And one thing that I want to give you a lot of credit for, throughout the initial readings, you were like, you were so emotional, and they don't show it because it doesn't play into our story. But you were so emotional about the fact you're like, God, there's babies. I see babies buried all around here, and there's these rocks. And again, I know nothing of this. And this is our 3rd time working together. And I'm thinking, is she nuts? Babies buried all around here? Rocks Market? Why would there be babies buried around here in Rye, New York? And then, like you said, a day or 2 later, I start to get to do the interviews. And then I have my notes like I took for this. And I have my notes that I'm sitting there copiously taking notes when you tell me these things. Even though it may sound maddening to me, I want to go back and push on those with the historians. And they don't show it in the episode because we don't really discuss it. There's only one little flash much later during the investigation when you mention the babies again. But I was talking to the historian, Sherry, and I said, I have to ask you something, only because it was so emotionally draining to our medium, Cindy Kaza. She kept mentioning babies being buried around the property. And I remember her face just going kind of blank. And she's like, what? And she goes, yeah. She goes, in that time era, the survival rate was not great for children. It just wasn't. And she goes, so there's up the hill, not far from that house, is a bunch of baby burials. And it was just like a thunderstruck, man. I was, wow, what? But again, it didn't play into the story of Lottie Peck.
Right.
And I'm sorry, his name is evading me right now. I want to make sure. Joseph Halstead. So,
right.
That doesn't get played into the episode much, but it was really impressive to me to see how you, again, filtering through all of the history, and you're nailing these little bits of information, and you knew you were right and you stuck to it. And we were able to tell you off screen, yeah, you're right. There were babies buried all around here. So that was crazy. But now here's the interesting aspect. Hans goes out there 3 times, helps different levels of spirits move on. The family has come to terms with Lottie Peck by hanging this painting. It all stops, or so we think. It wasn't until years later that we find out that down the road a parcel or 2, another house known as the Knapp House begins crazy activity. And when we piece this together and talk to the historian, almost exactly the date that the Berendt family hangs this painting and starts to acknowledge Lottie Peck, it stops there and picks up a few blocks down. And when I'm talking to a historian, I'm like, what's the connection? You find out Lottie Peck and the Knapp family were related.
Right.
They had adjoining parcels of land. And that was powerful. And that you're picking up, again, at this point, I didn't know there was another house. I knew there was another house, but I didn't think it had anything to do with Lottie Peck. And you're like, she's there. She's in another house. That's why I think that's one of the only times you see a reaction from me in that moment. I kind of sit back and I'm like, there is a second house. How do you know that?
Oh, I think I think I said, I don't even remember exactly what I said, but it was something about like through the woods or like going through, I don't remember,
Right.
but that was during the psychometry where I was super confused. I was like, I seriously, this is so confusing. Why am I going through the woods? Then I was seeing all this stuff and the little white room and like the fire. And it was like, it was honestly, as a medium, it was until I saw the episode, I had no idea what I was really, putting together until I saw it all together and saw the interviews with you speaking to the historian. Cause I don't see any of that stuff until the episode airs. Right. So
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's got to be wild for you to see it all pieced together finally. All the
it
puzzles
is.
come together. So
Yeah.
I go in and I get a chance to talk to Sherry, who is the historian and kind of keeper of the other location, the Knapp House. And I'm talking to her at a neutral site, and she's going over the mapping and telling me these stories. And as I kept pushing, I kind of got everything that that they were hoping I'd get, but I had more questions. And our director, Rob, goes, "Yeah, go ahead. Feel free to ask." And then I started pushing on, "Are you afraid? How do you?" And you just see this look on her face that she's like, "I don't like to be there. And I certainly don't want to be there dark." And I was like, wow, really? It's that powerful haunting. And then we move over. Then she refers us to talk to the other caretaker, Allie, who was over there. So we head on over to talk to Allie, the other caretaker. And they were very respectful to her in the way it was portrayed. But when we hit that trigger question of, are you ever afraid that the spirits here could hurt you? She began crying. You calmed her and held her hand and kind of talked her down. But they cut a lot of that for pacing to get right back into the story, because that's what we were there for. But you could see her well up with tears in the episode. And she feels like something's watching her. Something is there with her throughout all of this. And it was terrifying. Now as a medium, that's one of the few times we did the interview before we did the investigation. Mm-hmm. Now it's planted in my mind. 2 women are terrified of this location. And one of them is actually physically afraid of being hurt, and the other one doesn't want to be there after night. How does that start playing in your mind? How do you separate that and just be, okay, I got to be Cindy and not be influenced? Or are you just human in that element that, yeah, it's going to screw with you either way?
That's a great question, because generally I don't walk into an investigation full of fear. I mean, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do my job. There are times when we're approaching a location and I know this place is sketchy. I don't know. We got to be careful in here. This is going to be interesting. But I never walk into an investigation full of fear, because that's not a good way to do anything. Right. Oh. So when I hear the interviews, I mean, I listen and I'm compassionate. I can, be empathetic, but I wouldn't say that it affects me walking into a space, other than I take it into consideration. Like, okay, well, maybe we need to pay attention to this. Right. So.
Well, we go in and we, talking to Allie, find out that this family is very similar in the sense that they have a young man who was fine, and he ends up being injured. And he was the firstborn. He's injured, so he's kind of I don't know if we ever fully got that he was completely disabled from the waist down, or just severely impeded in what he would be able to do. But so the family kind of casts him aside in a sense. They're like, not that they've disowned him, but there's just like not the same respect in that time era. You have to remember, we got to get up. We got to till the fields. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to make the money. We got to keep afloat. And now he's become, in their eyes, kind of a burden to the family and what's been taking place. And all of a sudden you hear we've got this mirroring story, and it really does show the cyclical nature of how things work, right? I mean, here's Lottie Peck, a cousin, dealing with the same kind of family embarrassment and treating them poorly. And then, we've got poor Joseph over in his house dealing with the same deal and kind of relegated to a little room. And, again, we don't have full records because they didn't keep it, but this guy just kind of vanishes literally off the face of the planet. They could track every other family member. So they just assumed this guy just died and they were just kind of done with him, which is disheartening. and leads to a really emotional moment that happened for us that does not appear on screen. It was during a break after our crazy ass stuff that was going on during the investigation. We'll cover that in a minute. But when we walk upstairs, we're down there kind of talking. Now it's you, Shane, and I. We're just starting to get the feel for the place. We start hearing footsteps and banging upstairs. You remember that?
Right. This is a terrifying moment, by the way.
Right. And, as we're sitting there, and you can kind of feel this, almost like this wave of energy heightening, and then something right on the back of my neck, I feel this kind of, this like disgusted right on the back. And I crawled out of my skin and jumped, turn around, kind of expecting, is somebody screwing with me? Not sure what we're dealing with. And then we start hearing all kinds of ruckus upstairs, and we go upstairs to go try to confront what's going on up there. And, once we're up there, we kind of get this feeling to split up and let's try to cover more area and see what's happening. Cause we're hearing stuff downstairs. We're definitely hearing stuff upstairs. And what can we do? So we split this up, but that darkness, help listeners. Again, I'm not psychic, mediumistic. I can sometimes sense when you walk in and there's just something off, but there was definitely something that was non-human there. Would you say now in
right? Well,
was that demonic?
I mean, I don't like the D word, throwing that around,
Right.
There was definitely something dark there that was inhuman that
Now, could we say that it's something that
maybe
into just the negative energy that maybe Joseph had about the way he was treated, about all of that? No, this was
no. This is something totally separate.
Right. You do.
This is something. Yeah, it's totally separate. And what was, interesting to me is that like that part was like when we had all those experiences and like we did the Lord's Prayer, like we were all terrified. We had a moment of, we were all terrified doing the Lord's Prayer. Like, oh boy, what have we stepped into? But I wish we had more time to go back and really investigate more, because I think that needs a whole other investigation on its own.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
So what you allude to with the prayer. So after we break up, Shane goes in that closet room. You're in.
Shane's watching. Sorry. Hi, Shane.
Hey,
I see Shane Pittman is watching. We
Excellent.
love you, Shane. Shane's is he jumping in? Oh, jumping in real quick. I thought you were coming on, Shane. Come jump into the video.
I don't think I gave him the link, so I don't know if he can jump in, but if he's in chat, maybe I'll try to do it maybe after the break here, but
yeah, it's okay.
So we go in and Shane, as you're kind of picking up on this energy picking up, Shane feels something reach around and grab his neck, and it scares him, but
right.
He even gets this EVP, electronic voice phenomena, this voice calling out his name, Shane. Mm-hmm. And, at that moment, immediately you're going to be freaked out because something just touched you. Mm-hmm. and left you in this position. You're picking up on this other thing. Why do you think it's giving you its name? Do you think it's trying to get you to say it, to give it more power? What can you tell me about that? Well,
yeah, I mean, that's usually what happens. And, I'm not a demonologist, like I'm not, my expertise is not demons, right? Like I think I should tread lightly when I walk into situations like that. And honestly, if again, we encounter something like that, what I would do next time is call a demonologist and be like, hey, this is not my forte. Let's bring somebody else in who specializes specifically in this, because it's a whole other category of mediumship, right? Like it truly is. I mean, so I do think that was part of it. I think it has to do with building the energy of, also fear creates energy. It's an energy of its own. So there are a lot of things like, involved or in that whole, thing. Sorry, I can't talk tonight. I'm like trying to get the words out, but
we're screwing with you. There's no doubt. It was trying to, do you think it was trying to elicit fear?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now, Shane, if you're watching, Shane, or listening in, check your Facebook Messenger. I sent you the link to get in to the conversation so that you can join us. Why don't we do this? We'll take a quick break, see if Shane Pittman joins us. We'll continue our conversation as Darkness Radio presents Holzer's Ghosts, and we talk about Phantoms of the Fire, Season 1, Episode 1, as we go back in time to reinvestigate this famous case. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. You're listening to Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the program. Thank you all for being here and being a part of our evening. We'll be doing this every Thursday. Well, I'll be doing this every Thursday. I don't know if Shane and Cindy will be jumping in, but Gabe Roth has agreed to join me here soon. Alexandra Holzer will be back. Next week, we're going to be on, and we're going to be discussing the case, They Buried Me Alive, The Haunting of the Morris Jumel Mansion, which is one of my favorite episodes. And we're going to be going out and showing that episode next week. We'll be talking to Vinny and Chris, who appeared in that episode, and talk to them about the haunting and the history. And again, I'm working on a special guest to join us, and one I know Cindy was impressed with. Well, yeah, but I don't want to say anything because I'm trying to get him on, and hopefully.
Wait, who is it?
I'll tell you. I don't want to. Yeah, somebody that you and I were both excited to have involved. In
that guy.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Hoping to have him join us so we can tell part of the story of what it was and give a different perspective, because that was a cool aspect of it. I sent Shane the link. I don't know if he's not able to join. If Shane, if you're there, you're welcome to come in at any point to be a part of tonight's conversation as we're talking about the Phantoms of the Fire episode from season 1 of the Holzer Files. For those of you listening, if you are interested, you could find the Holzer Files and just check out next week, season 2, watch the episode. We'll be back here next Thursday again. It's 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern time for an hour. And I'll be talking with my special guests next week on the program. So going back into this haunting, we're already unnerved. I felt something breathe on my neck. Shane had somebody grab him by the neck. You're getting this overwhelming feeling. We separate, and Shane and I go into the room where you were feeling this demonic presence. You go into the room where Shane was touched, and we're having some strange activity take place. And we finally all come back together, and water had started pouring through the ceiling.
Right.
Now, we come out. I go up to check to see if there's water leaking, a pipe, anything that might be causing. There's nothing. It's bone dry. You start, when you're in the room, you're picking up, you're like, Dave's going to get pushed down a flight of stairs. I'm like, how the hell does she know this? That's why I started backing down the stairs. So I kept my face this way, and I'm coming down the stairs backwards, holding the railings to make sure I'm safe. We get down there, and this is the part that they don't show. We all just we're all blown away and freaked out, legitimately freaked out. Camera guys are freaked out. Remember, Toth had been standing there at the one point, and he heard something walking up behind him.
Yes.
And
yes.
He just has to stay on us as we're doing our deal. He's freaked out. So we're all just sitting there, and we're like, literally the conversation's like, what the fuck? This place is off the hook. This is fucking nuts, man. I wasn't prepared for this. Shane's like, I can't believe that thing touched me. I felt it. And you were really unnerved by this demonic force. And
right.
We start talking, and I'm like, I said, well, you know what? Let's do a quick protection prayer. Let's just do it. And the only thing that came to mind for all of us at that moment was the Lord's Prayer. And we do the Lord's Prayer. And I said to Joseph's mother, I'm like, your son's not alone. We're here. We're going to try to help his story. And at that moment, the most chilling thing from the stairway that I just came down up in that attic, this woman begins sobbing. You just hear this. And everybody, cameras, sound, director, us, everybody just fucking froze. And we're all like, what the hell? And it's kind of a sad state to say this, Cindy, but we were terrified.
No, I was terrified. Like, that's one of those moments where I was literally frozen in a moment of fear. Just like where you can't even, it's like you can't believe that this is even happening. Although prior to that, I had never had an experience like that. So I was frozen in fear, literally.
Yeah, that was freaky. So we heard this. Now, the problem is, folks, well, why didn't you show that in the episode? Again, because we were in a down moment, just us with the camera guys. Everybody's trying to decompress for a few minutes. Part of us don't even want to be in the house anymore, right? We're just kind of like, man, let's just call it a night. And they're like, guys, we're here for a while longer. We got other stuff to do. So we're all, and just even talking about it, I've got this agitation and stress in my chest right now. That's just like, I remember that feeling so clearly. But we had recorders going and sound never stopped rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And the directors went back and Shane and I reviewed the EVP. Nothing. There's no.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's why it's not incorporated in there. And, Shane can correct me if I'm wrong. And if he's in the chat room, he might not be able to.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Shane just said it was one of the craziest moments, !
Yeah. Yeah, that really unnerved us to no end, and was just, it was bonkers how creepy that moment. But again, creepy in this, not in the sense of oogity boogie, they're coming to get you. It was like just totally out of what we expected, and it was like just an acknowledging Joseph and acknowledging to his mother, we're not going to forget. We're not.
But I had a different take on that, Dave. I had a different take on that. I think my take was that was the negative presence we were feeling, trying to lure us up into the most unsafe level of the house where you could literally fall through. That's how I perceived that. Like, I was like, ooh, I know that sounds like a woman crying and I'm frozen in fear, but I feel like that's something evil. Like, that's different. That was my take on it. Because it's again, we don't have any way to discern. Like I said, I just thought because of the timing and that we had promised her, we tried to do the sealing prayer, that maybe that was just her relief that we weren't going to forget Joseph's story. Right.
So that was really powerful to me in that sense. Maybe that's just what I logically had to tell myself so I didn't shit.
Want to tell yourself?
I'm
trying to read the comments. Yeah.
And feel free, if you have questions, I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on questions here. Just feel free to chat in and join. But yeah, there's so much that was taking place. Let me make sure I've got everything else going on in here. Cause I had a couple other points. I did have some people mention, could Shane have felt something on his neck? Was it that string hanging down? If you watch in the video, folks, when he feels it, the string doesn't move. And it's not moving when he lurches the first time. The second time, it's not moving when he feels something again. It's only when he slaps back, he knocks the string. So, and that's when he jumps up and moves the camera. Now, this is where we capture one of the coolest pieces of evidence I've ever seen, period. And we've caught ghosts on camera. I think those are phenomenal. But Shane, and it's so great that it's happenstance, right? It's by accident. As he kind of jumps up, he moves the camera to look behind him. The camera swings past the window. And when we play it in slow motion, you suddenly see this hand roll out, this heat signature roll out.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
That was so crazy.
And it was just perfect. Like literally like something was on the outside. Now that's 2.5 stories up. There's no ladder. There's no way and that hand was flat and flush up against that window, but it rolled into that window like it was showing us that it was there. Mm-hmm. That was unbelievable and such a cool moment to experience. And I remember when we're showing that to Sherry, the first couple times she was just like, can you show that again? And we played it.
Yeah.
Can you show that again? And I played it. And then what do you see? And she goes, there's a hand. And I go, yeah, and you can see there's no heat signature behind it.
No, look, we were on the second story, and if you look at the size of the hand, it's massive, right? Yeah. Like it was Shane. So Shane can't get in. You have to be in Chrome, Shane. Google Chrome.
Yeah.
Log in with Chrome. He wants to come in, but he can't get in.
The spirits are keeping him out.
The Shane. The windows were also nailed shut according to the workers there, right? So yeah. There are all those things, because that piece of evidence to me, I think was one of the best we got in season 1. I mean, it was just so the timing of it was cool. Yeah.
Now, Joseph hasn't been forgotten. Luckily, we were able to help uncover that story. And I thought it was great. When we go in, it's kind of like, what are we going to say? How do we, you want to give her the depth of just how powerful this energy is, but you also want to leave her feeling empowered. So that's really, again, setting that intention that this is a historic place. This is an amazing history that needs to be told, but you can't just leave parts of it out. And there are souls that are still attached to this building. And if you treat it with reverence and respect, and you remember the story of Joseph, I don't think you're going to have any problem. And we did a closing prayer. We did the prayer upstairs. Afterwards, we did another closing prayer ceremony. Again, we don't show a lot of this on camera because, in all honesty, folks, religion pisses a lot of people off, even though it's a paranormal show. Most shows invoke something. You've got crosses and holy water and this and that and the other. The truth is, when they see too much prayer, people get irritated. So we just don't show it because we don't want to bother anybody. But we did what we could. And again, Cindy will be the first to tell you, we don't know if we have the ability to cross spirits over to help.
Well, can I tell my take on that?
Please, yeah.
As a medium, because a lot of mediums will say, I crossed that spirit over. Well, the spirit, the soul has to also be willing. I mean, you can talk to the soul on the other side and give words of encouragement and send love. And ultimately, people on the other side want their stories to be heard, which is what we experience every time we go into a location, right?
Right.
So there has to be the willingness of the spirit to go to the next dimension, layer, level, whatever you want to call it. And even in the cases where Hans Holzer, he tried sometimes to cross spirits over or send them to a better place, and they didn't go. It's not because he wasn't good at it. It's because that spirit just wasn't going to go, and that's part of it.
Here's what I do know, again, with intention. People are very, for 15 years, I've been doing prayer on our radio show and on our social media for people. And it's gotten to the point where people just contact me and ask me to pray like I'm a holy man. And I at first I was like, what the hell is wrong with people? I'm not a priest. What am I going to do? But they set an intention. I want help. Dave puts out the call and he gets this. And his heart is in it. So I don't want this public, but I want someone on my side. And that really touches me. So in that intention, and I've seen crazy things happen through the power of prayer.
Right.
Again, I don't know that we're necessarily crossing ghosts over or helping them. But again, is it setting the intention? Is it maybe even just telegraphing to the ghosts, and you're not wanted here. You're freaking people out. And they may not even want that. They may not, that's not their intention either. But with that said, I visited Bobby Mackey's in, Kentucky, Indiana? It's like right on that border.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I've heard all these horror stories, and it's a weird place, but it's
I had a terrible experience at Bobby Mackey's. Terrible.
Well, we were there, I've told the story before, but, I stood in the hellhole, right? I just was like, screw it. Why are we pussyfooting around? I climbed down into the hole and I stood in it. And Debbie Constantino jumped down there with me. And Mark was standing there, and Nick Roth got up behind me, and he's kind of crouched, and we're doing an EVP session with a shack hack, and we're talking, and we're getting responses, and it's angry. This spirit is angry, and it's using 4-letter words and nasty derivatives for homosexuals and everything. It was really, and it was clear coming through the radio. This isn't stuff you're going to hear through the regular radio. Well, later that night, as we're wrapping up and everybody's kind of leaving, I walk in, and there's a small clique of my friends there, and I go, okay, I'm going to go. I'll leave it with you guys. And as I start to walk out of the room, the obelisk says Schrader. The obelisk isn't programmed with my name. And I turn around, I'm like, and I start walking, and it says Schrader 2 times in a row. And they go, Dave, I think it's calling you. So I turned back around and I walked in the room and I said, I'm here. What can I do to help? And the only word it says is pray. And I'm like, okay. So we all grabbed hands and we did a closing prayer, just trying to help any spirits that were lost there. No other words are coming through during this entire prayer. No other sound. And I know this is going to choke me up again. But at the end, I said, I hope it helped. And there's just a shh, and then it goes, joy. And no other words were spoken. And it was like, oh, maybe prayer does work. Maybe we can help. So, it's kind of one of those, I don't know how it works or why it works, but we do what we can. And even if it's a placebo effect, we put in the prayer. We have those, at the Morris Jumel Mansion, we had those Santeria practitioners, the holy men come out and try to clear and cleanse the Morris Jumel Mansion for us at 2:30.
Well, the thing that I want to say to prayer and the power of prayer, yeah, I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in God. I talk about God. I think sometimes what can happen is in this, well, I don't know if this is going to piss people off or not, but the tendency is to pray from just one religion, and there are many religions.
Right.
And so I think that it's important to remember that, setting the intention, having the prayer, no matter what your religion is, right? Prayer is prayer. I guess that's where I'm going. and even if you're not religious, even if you're agnostic, it doesn't matter, right? It's the intention. It's the intention.
Putting forth the intention. It's spell casting. It's the words that you're putting forth. That's why music is so powerful, right? It's words that are put forth and evoke emotions and thoughts and processes. And that's why when you speak, and I always roll this into a lot of my conversations when I do live events, and when we do the Michigan Paracon this year, I talk about setting intention. I've got a little program I'm going to do about this, but I honestly believe that the power of your words are so powerful that they can corrupt yourself and corrupt your perception. Totally. So you've got to take that power back. Do you call upon the Archangel Michael? I do. As a matter of fact, I carry with me, I have the prayer of Michael the Archangel. And I'll say that a lot of times after an investigation, especially if it's creepy. And I try to block, pardon me, bless me. There, I've done it. I use that. That's a powerful prayer. But you hit a key point. A lot of times when I get people asking for help, I'll ask what religion they come from. And I will try to find a practitioner in their religion that can help them. And then on top of that, I will, I'll do my own prayer because it's not going to hurt, right? But I think it'll be stronger for the person if they're getting it in the prayer and in the belief system that they ascribe to. So that's my take on it. Let's see. There's other questions popping up. I want to make sure we get it. Thank you for blessing me. I appreciate you guys. If you have specific questions, feel free to throw in closing prayers, evidence. Yeah, we got the EVP of Shane. We got the thermal hand. We had the touches, the breath on our neck. That was pretty powerful. That whole episode was just really, there was so many layers and dynamics to that took place, and to see it affect such a wide swath. Have you ever heard of a spirit or energy kind of like we clear one area and all of a sudden it just kind of another location just becomes alive? How do you explain that?
Well, this might get a little bit out there, but here's the thing, like everything's energy. And Dave, did we lose Dave?
No, I'm here.
Wait, where did you? Oh, okay.
I'm just giving you the big screen.
I was like, where did he go? Because I was just, no, I want to talk to you. This feels weird. I'm just talking to myself. Come back, Dave. Come back. Okay, I guess Dave is leaving. Dave, it feels so weird. So what I was going to
spotlight as we're wrapping up tonight.
I don't want the spotlight. Okay. So what I was going to say is, right, like the souls on the other side, their energy, they're not in a human body like we have here. So, and also time and space, right? They don't exist on the other side, but the only way we can convey the experience that we're having is by putting things in space or giving things time, right? So of course it's possible for a spirit to be in many different places simultaneously. There's a really great book I encourage people to read called Dying to Be Me by a woman named Anita Moorjani. And the book is about a woman, Anita Moorjani, who had a near-death experience. Obviously, she survived because she came back to write the book. But she talks about what her experience was like when she actually went to the other side. So I am of the belief that spirits can be in many different places simultaneously. That's my belief. Can I tell you how it all works? No, nobody can. And if somebody claims they can, run for the hills, we're all just doing our best to try to figure it out. And I always say, when I get to the other side, I'll probably say, got that wrong. We're just trying, because we don't have the words to explain something it's hard for us to comprehend. We do not have the words for it.
Teresa Brown Parks asks, can anyone do psychometry or only mediums? And if I can say one thing, I did with the late Rosemary Ellen Guiley, the queen of the nighttime world, one of the amazing authors and legends in the field who we lost too soon a few years ago. She did a psychometry class. And again, I was kind of the mind, this was early in my deal, 15 years ago. And I'm listening to her talk about this hippy dippy, everything is energy and power. And I'm like, okay, so we do this breakup into little groups, and I'm with this couple, and they're like, exchange something. So the guy takes off his ring and hands it to me, and I took off my watch and handed it to him. And then we're supposed to hold it and just write things down without thinking. Don't put thought into it, no matter how obscure or weird. So I start writing things, and I get done, and he gets done, and he was pretty good. He had done a lot of things that were going on in my life. And I go, I just got he was more specific. I said, I just got a bunch of random flashes. I see a sweaty glass of iced tea. I literally see the sweaty glass of iced tea with water. And his wife looks and she goes, that's all he drinks is iced tea. It's got it, loves it when it's hot. It's the hotter and colder, the better. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I'll take that. That's a win. And then I said, I see a torn up road and all this construction equipment. Are you in construction? And he goes, are you kidding me? And I said, no, why? He goes, we are so pissed at our city because for the last year, they've torn up our road in front of our house and they haven't finished. All of this big equipment's out there. And every day my wife and I go out and shake our fists pissed off at this. He goes, are you kidding? And I'm like, you're joking me. He goes, no, we hate it. Oh my God, there's so much anger and rage. And so I picked up on this. I don't know. What's your take? Can anybody do psychometry?
Yeah. Well, look, like
an amazing medium and I don't know it.
Well, Dave, come on. I mean, you have experiences, and I believe everybody has psychic ability. I believe everybody has the ability to connect with their loved ones on the other side. I always say everybody can play the piano. Not everybody's going to be a concert pianist, but everybody has the ability. And I also really believe this, and I am taking this quote from one of my good friends, Jennifer Schaefer, who's also a medium. Is my job as a medium will be finished when nobody has to come see me anymore because everybody's having their own experiences. I truly hope that happens. Seriously.
I tell a lot of people, I said, you know what? For those of you that are on the fence post of should I talk to a medium to try to make that connection because I want to apologize or I want to set this right. I tell people, how about this? How about if you just set it right now before people die? Why don't you just take the time, put mediums out of business and do the right thing now instead of, and I'm not trying to smoke mediums.
No. I was just going to add something to that.
Yeah. So much of it's guilt. People just want to feel like you're not mad at me on the other side or you forgive me or no, I forgive you. And if we just make it right now and we take the time and look, never in a point in history has it been like this. We have to take people and each other more seriously and show more love and compassion and tell each other how we feel because you're not guaranteed a tomorrow.
Well, and look, in the West, we're very ill-equipped to deal with death. If you look at other countries, people approach the passing of a loved one in an entirely different way. So, a death here is, it's obviously it is sad. I lost my mom. You lost your parents. I've been through it. I get it. But I really, really believe that if we could, I guess one of my prayers is we can get to a space where we know that life continues after death. And when somebody's dying, we can say, see you later. We'll see you over there. See you on the other side. That would be amazing. And one other thing I wanted to add with when you were talking about the guilt and the shame and all that stuff. Yes, that's true. But I will say this, some things are better healed on the other side. There are certain situations where people cannot contact somebody, or it's better that they don't, for maybe it's not good for their emotional well-being or whatever. Some things are better healed on the other side.
Yeah. Matt Morris asks, Cindy, do you work with other mediums at locations too?
I love working with other mediums. I'm a huge fan of working with other mediums. I think we all have something different we can bring to the table. We can all, I'm a huge fan of working with other mediums. I haven't done that on TV yet, but I do live events with other mediums. That's super fun. I work a lot with Lisa Williams, my friend Anthony Maraca. So when COVID's over and I can get back to touring, I do all of my live events all over the US. And sometimes I do work with other mediums. I thoroughly enjoy sharing the space with other intuitives. It's fun. Yeah.
Sandus Crystal says, I hope that you have protective talismans. As far as that, I do. I wear religious medallions, blessed pieces that I have. And this season, season 2, when we go aboard the Queen Mary, I do something I'd never done before. I remove everything because I wanted to have an experience, fearing that if I'm all blessed up and there's this new force aboard the ship, maybe it's not going to show itself to me. So I strip down, and I will tell you, I'm regretting it deeply. Shit's been weird ever since we got back home. I don't know if it's just because of the intrinsic nature of the world right now and all the stress and pressure, or we're home more and we're more conscious of what's going on, or the fact that I brought something home, because I can't tell what's hanging off my back. I don't know where it came from, but there is something in the Schrader home, and we've been doing things and trying to clear it out. But God knows I don't need anything more in my house. I've got enough people. I don't need spirits. But yes, I would. Do you wear any religious or have any kind of talismans that you take with on investigations?
Generally, no, I don't. Sometimes I will. It depends. Usually not. But there are a couple times that I have. Yes. Somebody was asking what the name of the book was again. Yes. Dying to Be Me by Anita Morjani. It's amazing. It's a quick read. It's an amazing book.
Have you ever met Michelle Belanger?
I have. She's awesome. She's funny. I met her funny in a good way. She has a great sense of humor. Haunted Salem Life. Yeah, I met her there.
She was great. She saved that investigation too when that cuckoo bird went in and started acting like a goof, and Michelle talked her down very calmly and took control. That was awesome. Let's see. Any other quick, Dave, do you carry a rosary? I do. I carry it in my bag. I'm not Catholic, but I don't know if the rosary cares. I carry it with reverence, and it was a gift to me. And I've been given, I actually have a bunch of heavily blessed medallions and religious things. I get gifted at a lot of locations from people that are worried for my soul. So God bless them. They're always good.
I'm worried for your soul too, Dave. I'm praying for your soul.
Dave, ever thought of doing an episode of Darkness Radio about your personal haunting? Oh, I talk about it on Darkness Radio all the time when weird stuff happens in our house. So I chit chat about it. I've even told them that if COVID continues, maybe we need to film an episode of Holzer Files here in the Schrader home and have Cindy come in and get this thing out of here.
Yeah, it'll be Haunted Schrader Live.
I like it. How do you know if something is attached to you? Joan Costello asks.
Well, that's a good question. I will share this example again of my friend Sarah in Indonesia, who saw, well, I guess it wasn't really an attachment, more of something following me that I wasn't aware of. And people were like, well, you're a medium. How did you not know? the truth is, guys, I don't walk around connecting to spirit all day long. I need to have some sort of normalcy in my life. So I'm not open all the time looking to see who's around. Maybe I should do a daily check-in, after that in the morning. All right. So that's part of it. I think some people misunderstand and think that mediums have no control over their ability or they can't turn it down. And that's not true. So unless I'm working, I'm usually trying to stay present and in my own space so I can live kind of a normal life, as normal as it could be for a medium. Yeah.
I agree. Ben asks, do you do EVPs in your home, Dave? I do not. I do not recommend anybody do that because you flip the light on and you don't know what you're going to attract. So I always say I don't do it. If I'm going to have somebody else do it, I would have Shane or Cindy try to communicate so that the spirits aren't coming to me. Not that I have anything against it, but I just think sometimes that opens up stuff you can't deal with. Do you ever use professional cord cutters? Yes, I've done that. Here's an interesting question. Mary Louise wants to know, Cindy, have you ever had a near-death experience?
No, I have not. Sometimes I think I'm like, gosh, I would love to have it. And I'm like, wait, what am I asking for? Then I would have to die. So, but there was another question that I saw where somebody was talking about how I go to different countries and interview different healers and how do I pick those healers? Honestly, guys, sometimes I just get to the country and I say a prayer. I'm like, gee, I hope I can, find a healer, because you have to find somebody, a local, then you have to find a fixer. You have to be brought to a healer. They have to make arrangements. So a lot of the time it's me trusting the local people to guide me to somebody who's reputable. So that's how I found most of the people that I've worked with in foreign countries. Mm-hmm. Ooh,
yeah, Martin jumps in. He says, Cindy, were you ever reluctant to tell someone what you felt as a medium?
Sure. But, over time, I found that there's always a way to deliver a message using discernment in the most healing way possible. I think a mistake some mediums make is they think they have to tell people what they hear exactly how they hear it, and they absolutely do not. So I'm very mindful in how I deliver something. And sometimes I do see things that I don't want to see. If I see a health problem, that's not fun to see, that somebody might be leaving the planet soon. But I try to find the best way possible to deliver the message so somebody never walks away feeling afraid or unempowered, because we should be empowering people.
Richard asks, Richard and Evelyn, I don't know which one, what's your favorite piece of equipment to use? Mine is Shane. Shane, go to the basement. Shane, go to the deep attic. That's my favorite. I like audio recorders. That's truly my favorite. An audio recorder or maybe a shack. I just love to be in the moment. I don't like to be attached to so much of the equipment. That's why you'll see me doing more like mirror work and EVPs and doing that stuff. So that's part of what I like to use. Do you have a piece of equipment you actually like to use, Cindy?
Ooh, I like the EVP. And also the Mel meter. I get them confused. That's the one that beeps, right? Beep, beep, beep. It can be away from you. And that one. That one. I like that one.
Next week, if you are I want to tell people, if you're afraid of spiders, next week's episode at the Morris Jumel Mansion is one for the ages. Certainly poor Shane was down in the basement being accosted by spiders through most of that. So that'll be on. Let me look. I think we have a couple more quick questions. Craig says, do you think Hans Holzer ever came through in one of your Holzer file investigations? I don't believe so far. I think we've had communication with Ethel and Sybil in ways, but again, we don't call on Hans because of respect for the family. And Alexandra's in constant contact with her dad. She's a medium or I don't know if she's a medium or empathic or whatever, but she's in contact with her dad. And we've actually talked, and she's down with it, that we'd love to have her come on an episode and maybe her try to bridge and have talk to Hans, see if we can record it or have him do a piece of equipment. But just out of respect, we haven't really done that. Gary Robinson wants to know, can an object be unhaunted or uncursed?
Sure, right? Objects get blessed all the time and exercised, right? So
sure. Yeah. Right. And sometimes it's a harmonic issue. They used to sell these things called degaussers, and you can still find them online. You just have to be really careful because they will wipe out your phone and your TV and everything. But they used to use these to, back in the old days, TVs would get rainbow colors, and they come in there and they break that magnetic issue and give you a clear screen again. But there are degaussers that can erase magnetic tape, and I've often thought it'd be great in some of these haunted locations with residual hauntings if we went in and basked this room in this magnetic degausser, kind of separating all the particles. Would that end the haunting? So I think, there's been blessings, there's been bindings, there's things like that. Obviously, the Warrens believed in that pretty heavily. That's why they have their museum and they keep all that stuff in. Pamela Jarrett, we're just going to do a couple more quick questions. Pamela Jarrett says, how do you choose a location? Have you considered the Amityville Horror House? I'll answer that question, and we answer it all the time. Amityville has a strict no film policy at that house. You have to get filming permits. You would only be allowed to film in the house. You can't film out in the property around the house. You can't film from across the street. There's all these rules in effect. And most of the people that buy the house have to buy it with the understanding that the village has gone to great lengths to try to dissuade people from coming there. So I don't think it's going to ever happen. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. We're in COVID. Mm-hmm. Maybe the village wants money and people coming back. I don't know. But how do we choose locations? It usually has to do with, is the location still viable? Is there still a haunting going on? Are the people that live there willing to allow us in? Because a lot of those houses back in the day were family houses. Now they're multi-million-dollar homes owned by big corporations and powerful people that don't want the Holzer Files in. But we said that season 1. Season 2, there are some very prominent people that finally allow us in because they saw the love and respect we showed, and big into the history. They love that aspect. So that's a good one. I do want to mention too, if I can, Cindy, as we're talking about this, people, our show's going to return. We're not sure when, February or March. But all we ask is, if you love the show, we just ask that you support the show by watching it. Watch it.
Yeah.
Spread the word. As soon as we know it's going to be back on, keep watching our social media. As soon as we know it's going to be back on, you spread the word. Because the more people that watch it, the more people is what's going to give us a season 3. We've got
basically, if you want us to have a season 3, it's imperative that you watch the part 2 of season 2, because it depends on your viewing. And please watch the day it airs. What's happening now is people are DVRing everything and then going back and watching the episodes a week after the airing date, which makes our ratings look like they're actually lower, so I don't know. Even if you can't watch it, turn your TV on to the Travel Channel and let it roll, baby. Just tell all your friends, hey, you might hate ghost shows. Can you just turn your TV on from, 10 to 11 this night? Just let it roll. Turn it down. We don't care. Spread the word, because we want to come back and give you guys a season 3. And we love you.
And then this last 7 episodes, we are going to blow you away. We have some of the best stories, amazing histories, some of the greatest finds. If you missed the first 5 or 6 episodes this season, make sure you go back and watch them on DVR, catch up. Next week, you can join me for a look at season 1, episode 2, They Buried Me Alive, the haunting of the Morris Jumel Mansion, one of the most famous and speculated hauntings ever. And Chris and Vinny from the Morris Jumel Mansion are going to join me. I'm working on a special guest. Hopefully that will join me as well. Cindy, before we part tonight, you're doing your mediumship lessons. You're doing live readings online. How can people find you? What's the best way to communicate?
Yeah, the best way to communicate is on Instagram, Twitter, or Medium Cindy Kaza on Facebook. On my Facebook page, I post all of the classes that I'm teaching. I've been teaching a lot of mediumship for beginners. So any of you who are interested in learning about your own abilities, if you've had experiences and you want to figure out what the hell happened, it's a really fun class. I generally teach on Sundays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to post a new class soon. So you go on and you just buy a spot. It's via Eventbrite. I post all of that to Facebook. I post it to Instagram and to Twitter. And I also do live events on Zoom because of COVID, where I connect with your loved ones and give messages. So both of those things I've been doing a lot during COVID, and you can find all of my dates and courses and all that stuff on social media.
Cindy, my love, stay safe and have a very happy new year.
Thanks, Dave. And everybody out there, stay safe and God bless. And thanks for having me on, Dave. It was super fun.
Shane, you're here in spirit with us. Thank you for popping into the chat room and communicating, and we'll work it out so you can be on the show again with us soon here. Our blessings and thoughts go out to you and your family and your father. And just know that you're in our hearts and minds and that of all of the production.
We love you, Shane.
So thank you. We love you, Shane. Be safe. Be safe, everyone. Love you. We'll be back again next week. True Crime Tuesday and the Best in Paranormal Talk Radio Wednesday, Thursday, and now Fridays. As we continue this, you'll be able to tune in Wednesdays for supernatural news, Thursdays for our guests, and Fridays for Holzer's Ghosts. That's it for this evening. That's Tim. I'm Dave. You've been listening to Darkness Radio.